Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna
Radha Madhava ki Jaya, Jaya Prabhupada ki Jaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Ajnanatimrandasya Gyanajana Shalakaya Chakshu Ummitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangumangayadagiri Yat Paramahamsa Shri Gurudinatayam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutaya Srimati Niranjana Swamiti Namani Anahata Prayasana Prabhupada Krishnaya Sankirtana Kavitartam Ihate Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutaya Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurava Pacharya Vishesha Shunyana Paschacharya Shakara. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Radha Shivasati Gaurava Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai.
So, I thought about reading a verse from Bhagavad Gita, from 8th chapter, verse number 15. So, the Sanskrit, I'll try to read it. So, Mam upetya punarjama dukhalayam ashashvatam natnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gata. The translation is, after attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporal world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. I also read another verse, next verse, so 16. In translation, it's from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains my abode, the son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So the reason I wanted to read this verse is because I wanted to speak a little bit about the suffering in this material world and the nature of suffering. And I thought it's somewhat relevant because we see so much suffering these days, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I see so much suffering. I thought it's worth to kind of reflect on that and see, you know, how can we deal with it, and what can we do about this? Should we just surrender to suffering, or should we do something about this? So I'll read the purport to this verse 15. So Srila Prabhupada says, since this temporary material world is full of the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death, naturally, he who achieves the highest perfection and attains the supreme planet, Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan, does not wish to return. The supreme planet is described in Vedic literature as beyond our material vision, and it is considered the highest goal. The Mahatmas, great souls, receive transcendental messages from the realized devotees, and thus gradually develop devotional service in Krishna consciousness, and become so absorbed in transcendental service that they no longer desire elevation to any of the material planets, nor do they even want to be transferred to any spiritual planets. They only want Krishna's association and nothing else. Such great souls in Krishna consciousness attain the highest perfection of life. In other words, they are the supreme souls. So, here Srila Prabhupada, he speaks here about two things. One thing is the material world, which is full of misery and sufferings, and then he speaks about the spiritual world. So first maybe I'll speak a little bit about the material world. It is full of misery and sufferings. And here Prabhupada describes four principles that make it full of misery and suffering, which is birth, old age, disease, and death. And would anybody here disagree that these are not pleasant things? Is birth a pleasant thing? Taking birth? Either for mother or the child, is it pleasant? Is it suffering? Yeah. Both mother suffers and the child, I'm sure, it suffers. Because the child has to really be strained to take birth. Then death. Does anybody think that death is a good experience? No? Maybe somebody thinks it's a good experience. Maybe for some people, they think it's better than the suffering that they experience. Yes? Some people even commit suicide because they think that death is better than the life. But that's not a good standard to compare to. So it means it's a suffering. And in between there is disease and old age. And old age, I can tell you, is not fun. Definitely it's not fun. I tell you why it's not fun from my perspective. And maybe I should not consider myself that old, but I'm already experiencing that. It's not fun because you want to do things with your body that you used to do, but you can't. And it just drives you crazy. It's not fun. Plus, with old age, the disease comes also, and disease is not fun as well. But there is also another category of suffering in material world, and it's described as these are different kleshas. The kleshas, adibautika, adidaivika, and adhyatmika. Have anybody of you heard about these types of sufferings? Yes, you have. Yes. Anybody? Has somebody never heard about this description of sufferings? Just in case, if you've never heard, I'll explain to you. So the sages, the acharyas, the spiritual preceptors who study scriptures and follow the Vedic authorities, they describe that there's the broad categories of suffering comes adibautika, which comes from one's own body. Can anybody, maybe can we elaborate on this? Could you think what kind of suffering can come from our own body? Please give some relevant examples if you can think of any suffering that comes from the body. Are there any suffering coming from the body, from our body? Can you think of anything?
Anger.
There is a pain, there is the anger.
Pain from the body comes, okay.
You could be injured. There could be injuries.
Injury, yes, it causes suffering, okay. Anybody else? Sickness, yes.
Spiritual suffering.
Spiritual suffering.
Spirit, it comes from the body,
Not just the mind and the spirit.
from the mind.
In the
which is-
spirit. In the spirit. Both
Okay.
mind and spirit.
Okay. It comes from mind and spirit, okay. Anything else that comes?
Mental issues, depression.
Yes, very good.
Emotions of hatred and
Pardon?
emotions like hatred and
Yeah, emotions, they can, like, my wife just found out that her mother had a stroke and she could not sleep. It was just, I told her you have to sleep. And she could not sleep because her mind was spinning. She said, oh, how it happened, what happened, I said, it was really, really, so like, few days, she just could not sleep. She would go to bed early, she would take some pills, she could not sleep. I wake up in the morning early and she's never, usually she sleeps in the morning, but she's just sitting in bed, chanting around, it's just completely unable to sleep. So mind can be a powerful source of distress. Okay, so the second category of the suffering, adhyatmika, what's it? Adidaivika, okay, coming from demigods, yes. I hope I didn't mix them up. Okay. Adhyatmika comes from, Adidaivika, yes, coming from the devatas, from demigods, from nature. Like storms, yes. Earthquake, yes, what did you say, Mary?
Rainfall.
Rainfall, yes. Fire, yes.
Earthquake.
Yes.
Hurricane, tornadoes.
Tornadoes, yes. And we see plenty of it now. Plenty of it. It's like really, it seems like it's just really rising up. So no question, yes?
And what about, would like the illnesses or viruses be from nature?
That would be another category. Yeah.
It's from human.
It's going to come from other living entities. So this is adhyatmika. I think I'm confused because adibautika maybe it comes from other. Is it? Let me just. Yes? Okay, so I'm sorry. I'm just mixing these terms. Adhyatmika klesha, suffering caused by one's own body and mind. So this is adhyatmika, which we call yes. Then, such as physical and mental infirmities. Adibautika klesha, suffering caused by other living entities. So the adibautika is caused by. So okay, let's think about what kind of suffering other living entities can cause. Can you think of anything?
War.
War. Yes, okay.
They can kill anyone, they can murder anyone.
Okay. Anything else? Grudges. Very good. Anything else? People can be mean. Bullying. Other living entities, viruses, bacteria, they can cause suffering. Parasites, lots of things that can cause suffering. So we have a combination of birth, old age, disease, and death, and in between we have adhyatmika, adibautika. Can you think about any sufferings that don't come in this category? Adhyatmika, adibautika. Is there anybody can think about something that is not included in that category?
We fight with our loved ones, and that also can cause like suffering.
That's other living entities, yes.
Yeah.
Either we cause or, yeah. But that would come under this category. Pardon?
Love.
Love?
It could be love to anyone or for anyone, but
Will it cause suffering? Love, yes.
yes, I believe it's the love for someone that makes some other person do good things.
Unrequited love, yes, that it's not returned.
Yeah, it's like if a war is going on,
Mhm.
it's because the soldiers love their country. And
Yeah, but that would be in the category with other living entities, yes, but it would, other living entity in that interaction, yes? But I'm looking at some suffering that comes outside of these three categories. Can everybody, yes?
Maybe the figure of God abandoning you or not. Something to do with a relationship with Bhagwan that he's not returning back the love that
That would be other living entity also. Because God is a living entity.
yeah.
So everything is, yes?
Tornadoes or earthquakes.
That would be,
Natural disasters.
that would be Adidaivika. That would come, yeah.
If,
So,
if
yes?
we would have something, it would be in the Vedas. So probably we don't have anything.
This is my point. My point is that, you know, the Vedas and the saints, the acharyas, they're so perfect. They could define our condition in those three categories, and it's complete. You know, and the scientists or whoever draws knowledge from imperfect authority, that knowledge is not complete. You can others constantly add something or correct something or something. But knowledge from sages is so perfect that it's given to us. We cannot really, you know, I cannot find any other source of suffering that those described in the Vedas. So this is the perfection of the Vedas, the science of the Vedas. You know, in this material world, there's, I would say, two categories of people. There's those that think that this material body and this material world can provide some kind of happiness or some kind of comfort. And there's those that think otherwise. And those who think that you can make it work in this material world, make it happy or make it work for you, they usually are, you know, making a research. You know, they're trying to find out how to make it work. You know, how can I use whatever I have and make it better and better and better. And then you have the whole field of science, and that science. I actually have a glass. Thank you very much. That's and then they do the research, and by the research they think maybe we can improve our medical science so people will be healthier, they live longer, yes. And then in other sciences they think maybe we can stop tornadoes or do scientific research and we stop the global warming. And so they keep doing this research and so on, and they think at some point we're going to accomplish this situation in which we're going to solve all the problems by the power of science, our endeavor and so on, and we'll be happy. You know, that we have a perfect society that will have AI that will do everything for us, and all we have to do, we're just going to sit and have vacation. We're going to have a ministry that, you know, for the vacation, for, you know, trying to entertain us. So our life is going to, society is going to be entertainment. However, you know, when you look at the sages and their description of this material world, this is impossible. Because no matter what progress in science we're going to make, there's still going to be birth, old age, disease, and death. And there's still going to be adhyatmika klesha, adidaivika klesha, adibhauvika klesha. No matter what we do. So there's really no solution. This world is designed in such a way that we will have to suffer. And anybody that thinks that can fix that world so we don't suffer is just a fool, according to the sages. But some people, they think that's all I have, so I'm going to invest my life and I'm going to just create, you know, this whole, I was just reflecting on this scientific process and thinking how, now all these scientists, most of them, they talk about this evolution theory of evolution of Darwin, yes, and they kind of think that, you know, there is a progress that, you know, the survivors of the fifth week become better and better and better. And I'm just thinking, how could any scientist, like reasonable person, come to this kind of conclusion? First of all, they came to conclusion that, you know, at some time in the past, in the universe, some chemicals, they found each other, you know, like nitrogen, oxygen, they combined themselves somehow, and then they created life, yes? And somehow these chemicals, they develop a desire to survive. Nitrogen, oxygen. I don't know whether it was nitrogen or oxygen, decided that, or maybe together they discussed the issue, and they wanted to decide that they will survive. They want to survive. And then other chemicals joined them, and they said, okay, we're going to survive together. I'm just trying to wrap my head around how is this a scientific method of doing this. It sounds to me a little bit like a fairy tale, you know, that some chemicals get together in the past, and they get together and they decide that they will survive. However, when you ask the scientists, you know, about this, they'll say it's very scientific. And if you propose to them the Vedic version, and you said to them, well, you know, the Vedic version is that life comes from life, and the matter is dead, and there's this other thing, they'd say this is just a fairy tale. To me, it more sounds like a fairy tale when they talk about the chemicals wanting to survive than, you know, but anyways, this is the issue. Anyways, so Krishna here says that after attaining it, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. So there is a second category of people that realize that you can't be happy in this material world, and they are called Mahatmas, and they come to the realization Aham Brahmasmi, which means I am spirit soul. I am different from matter. Matter goes through all these cycles of, you know, taking birth, lasting for some time, maybe creating some byproduct and then disappearing, and it just goes through this cycle. You can never change it, yes? But there is another category of people that understand that matter and spirit, there are two different things. Matter cannot have a desire, so chemicals don't have desire. We understand that the stone doesn't have a desire, which is a combination of chemicals, quartz and some other things. But the soul, the characteristic of the soul is that the soul has desire. It's an eternal companion of the soul. And so therefore this other category of people that understand that there is a soul, that I means the spirit, not the matter. They realize Aham Brahmasmi, I am the spirit soul. They go on the search to understand who am I? What am I supposed to do? What is my nature? What am I? This is a spiritual journey. There's many ways, many paths on which search, like a seeker, this kind of seeker can enter and can seek the truth about themselves and about their purpose in life. There's many systems of yoga. There's many, they are described by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. But there's many systems, there's a lot of commitment and difficulty required for those seekers. But Krishna here says simply to Arjuna, if you simply develop devotion to me, your whole path is going to be very simple. And Prabhupada here says that the Mahatmas, great souls, receive transcendental message from the realized devotees and thus gradually develop devotional service in Krishna consciousness and become so absorbed in transcendental service that they no longer desire elevation to any of the material planets, nor do they even want to be transferred to any spiritual planet. They only want Krishna's association and nothing else. Such great souls in Krishna consciousness attain the highest perfection of life. In other words, they are the supreme souls. So, you know, I understand that all of us that are here, we are in that second category of living entities, which means we understand that there is a difference between matter and spirit. We are spiritual, and we are seekers of who am I and what is my business in life, and how can I get out of this cycle of birth and death and suffering. I just don't want to suffer. I want to get out of it. How do I do this? So this is the process. So generally, the process that is described by Srila Prabhupada is that we should get together and we should hear about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should hear about his pastimes. He appeared in this world and he performed many, many different pastimes. And because he's completely pure, what does it mean that he's pure? His heart is completely pure. He doesn't have any selfish motive. He doesn't have any traits of that we experience in this material world. That is, I want something for myself. I don't. Bhagavan. The definition of Bhagavan is that he's the wealthiest, the most powerful. He is the most renounced. He has all the knowledge. And can you help me to others?
Opulences.
Opulences, yes.
He has strength, he has fame, he has
fame, another. So he has everything. So there's nothing that he's in need of. There's nothing that he wants to get from somebody else. We get everything from him. So if we associate with a person like this that does not interact with us with some selfish, I want from you this or I want from you that, then our heart becomes purified. We learn how it is to be like a person that is not selfish, not self-motivated or something like this. And then when we engage in a relationship in this kind of spirit, with this kind of mood, that relationship becomes what we call pure bhakti, or exchange of love. And that exchange is completely satisfying, and that exchange takes complete precedence over everything else. And so this practice, how does it happen? How we reach the point that our hearts, we get together, we chant Hare Krishna, we hear about Krishna's stories, and we serve Krishna in so many ways. We can serve in the form of the deities. Whatever we do in our life, we work, we earn some money, we buy some offerings, we bring it to Krishna, and we have loving exchanges among each other in the spirit of pleasing Krishna. And when we practice like this seems to be like a simple and very material work. You could say it's not different than maybe some other people that do this kind of exchanges, but this is focused on Krishna, and therefore our goal is to become purified and to serve Krishna. Then our heart becomes purified, and that love becomes unobstructed. It becomes so intensified that all the distresses and the sufferings that we experience in life become irrelevant and unimportant. And I just wanted to read to you something, a letter, 2 letters from the devotees in Ukraine who went through are going right now through incredible suffering externally, which is caused by other living entities, obviously. And but because before that war, they were practicing the simple things like coming together, chanting Hare Krishna, reading about Krishna, offering whatever they had to Krishna, and they, by practicing, their consciousness were going up and up and up, higher and higher. So now when the test of this practice showed in the face of the war. And I think it's just so outstanding that I just wanted to share it with you. So this is letter from Kalakeri Devidas, date unspecified. So she says here, I am going through a very severe test now, and I will start my story from the beginning. 32 hours before the start of the war, people began to receive a strange SMS that the war was starting and they had to leave the city. On this day, we had an evening chanting of the holy names of the Lord in the temple. My spiritual guide, Niti Sundari, and I approached Madhava Krishna for instructions on what to do, but we did not hear anything concrete in response. The next day, explosions were already heard. We did not sleep all night. In the morning, I called my spiritual guide, Niti Sundari, and she invited me to her house. We also took another Mataji with a child and settled in with her. Then 3 more families came to us from the outskirts. As a result, there were 18 of us. 3 days later, the electricity, water and gas were all turned off. We had a minimum supply of food and water, but we were very lucky, and Krishna provided us with plenty of food. We were at the right time in the right place. A large wholesale store was open for the military, and we took out a large amount of products. We were able to get through to some more devotees so that they could also stock up on food. We delivered food to everyone we could. While it was possible to somehow move around the city, we collected rainwater and snow. We assigned duties, cooked prasadam, read Bhagavatam, sang kirtan. In this way, we lived for 2 weeks until they started bombing us from planes. So, this was just a prelude of what was happening. They just got the messages, all anxiety comes out, now the children, they have to find a place. They know it's coming. They don't know what to do. Should we run? Should we stay? It just brings it so close, when you read it. Not from our house, there was military equipment, and the explosions of grad guns and so on were very audible. The first time a shell hit nearby, the house survived. We were very scared and took refuge in 2 tiny rooms where there are doors and narrow but high windows. These were the 2 safest rooms in the house. That night, about 5 air bombs fell nearby. We all thought that we would not live until the morning. The last bomb fell so close that all the glass flew out along with the frames and doors. Only the walls remained. In the middle of the night, we ran to hide the children in a small basement with our neighbors, while we ourselves remained in our house to wait for dawn. Gathering everything that was left, periodically running to the shelter, we freed the cars to go to other devotees who were hiding in the basement house. Under the explosions of bombs, we barely left the house and moved safely. The brave devotees went back to the house to pick up the large supply of food and returned safely. We were very shocked. It was creepy and scary. Only Kirtan saved us from this state of terrible fear. So just also to think about it, they were in a really dire situation, but they were seeking each other. That's the devotees. They feel that the safest place to be is with the devotees. Why? Because when I'm with a devotee, I can remember Krishna, no matter what happens. I don't panic, I don't go see where are the authorities to help me. It's not my shelter is Krishna. This is the nature of the devotee. For several more days, we lived in this place. Every day, more and more devotees came to us. Then information came that one checkpoint was bombed, and several devotees, including myself, ventured to go to Berdiansk. Thank God we succeeded. We called back the remaining devotees, and they left on their way 2 in the morning. A couple of days later, we moved to Zaporizhia, and on the way came under fire at the checkpoint. Thank God we were not hit, and we managed to leave. So imagine going. Every minute you think you're gonna die because bombs are flying. Either you don't have food or you have to move. If you stay in place, you get bombed. If you move, you're gonna get bombed. But anyways, that's what they did. They were moving. A couple of days later, we moved to Zaporizhia, and on the way, in Zaporizhia, we were also received by devotees. We spent the night, and then we went to the Dnieper. Here we were also received by merciful devotees. We decided with a small group of the devotees to go to the community in Denmark, Copenhagen. They are waiting for us there, and tomorrow, March 21st, we must take a train to Poland and then to Denmark. I try to accept the situation as it is without getting involved in politics. I tried to think about Krishna all the time, especially when it was very scary. But it was very difficult. My mind turned off. Even during heavy bombing, I chanted physically, but in my mind, I could not even imagine the appearance of Krishna. Everything was not clear. For a moment, everything was blurred. Only fear. I took this fear as karma for all the living beings I killed, the opportunity to be cleansed and pray, sincerely pray, having removed all the masks. Shortly before the start of the war, I had a dream about Srila Prabhupada. Many devotees were standing in the semi-dark room opposite Srila Prabhupada's murti when suddenly I saw steam coming out of his mouth. He breathed, got up, and went into the crowd. All the people rushed after him. A stampede began. Prabhupada turned around with a very sad and worried look, looking into the distance. I thought it was the end of life, that we would leave the body as Srila Prabhupada came to pick us up. But after we didn't get a single scratch from the bombing, I realized that Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, and all the devotees are protecting us. Also, the fact that you mercifully gave me a shelter at your lotus feet added to my confidence that Krishna does not leave his devotees. These are the words of Guru. Today, all Mariupol devotees are alive, although not all of them were able to get out of the city. Everything material fell off in an instant. Only grief for my mother, sister, and nephews bothers me. I don't know what is happening to them. It brings great suffering. I pray every day that they are safe, fed, and whole. My beloved devotees take great care of each other. Everywhere we are accepted and cared for. And we also do not forget to serve our hospitable guests. We have a lot of realizations. The brightest is that we finally understood what the material world is like and what we would do if not for Srila Prabhupada. Everything superfluous has fallen off, stupid desire and aspirations. All of that has lost its sweet meaning. Faith intensified, Krishna had shed special mercy on us and took everything away, leaving his holy name, which are everything. In contrast, I felt sweetness and intense joy while chanting, putting everything in the hands of Krishna, even if forced. I am grateful for this experience, although it was very painful, but I intend to continue serving Krishna and all his servants with even greater enthusiasm. Thank you very much. By your grace, I have acquired many valuable things. In this war, I was born as a servant of a servant. This most important event in my life overshadowed all adversity. Please accept my obeisances, dear Guru Maharaj. It's incredible, isn't it? We should really keep it in mind and understand that we're not coming to the temple just to do some puja or do some praying or I want this, I want that. We're really coming to approach Krishna, to be with Krishna. And when we do this sincerely, then in a situation like this, we will not be the happiness, the stress, that all this distress that comes is going to be irrelevant. We actually can become happy because, like these devotees they describe, they are happy because they experience presence of Krishna, protection of Krishna. And so it really gives another dimension to relationship between the devotees. Like it really gives such a. At least when I read it, I was just thinking, this is such an opportunity. The devotees really, we need to get close. We really need to get close and serve. We have to be spending time together, serving Krishna together, serving each other. And if we do that, we will find shelter in this. And at the time of death, we'll completely be sheltered. We're not going to have any fear. And when I was reading this, in fact, I was just thinking about this pastime of Krishna. We're just coming close to the month of Kartik, and there's going to be Govardhan Puja and Diwali. And I was thinking about this pastime of Govardhan Puja that Indra, Adidevika, Indra was sending these storms, torrents of rain, just to punish the residents of Vrindavan. And we can understand what these were like a biblical storm. What we are experiencing maybe is 1 in 100 years. Yes, they talk now. It's every year is 1 in 100 years storm. Yes, but these were like a biblical storms. And so people, with all the devotees, all the residents of Vrindavan, Krishna raised the Govardhan hill, and they could all find a shelter under Govardhan Hill. And there was so much loving exchanges under this Govardhan Hill. In the middle of this, different devotees they tried to help Krishna. There was so many activities, sweet, and it was wonderful. You know, the material distress, material anxiety did not exist. Whatever material nature brought in to punish or to create a havoc just intensified the loving exchanges and intensified the sense of happiness and bhakti. So, you know, if we can only understand that, and we can see that this is not only a time of 5,000 years ago when Krishna lived Govardhan, but even now, devotees who are practicing, you know, really practicing Krishna consciousness together, they experience exactly the same thing. But you know, I was reading this letter, I was thinking about this. But you know, I read very slowly, and I read the books. I read this book from the first page to whatever page now. And so then I just started to read another letter, and then another letter. And I read this other letter, it's a very short letter. But this really speaks exactly about this pastime. So this is a letter from Gora Purnima, Das and Sitala Devi Dasi, on March 2nd, 2022. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisances. I do not want to bother you too much with my letters, but still, I understand that I was not able to describe everything that is happening here and what is really important. Yesterday, I was remembering Govardhan Hill Lila, and it seemed to me that Krishna was holding Govardhan Hill over the devotees. I had this feeling because everything around me is so challenging. Shells, rockets, and planes are flying over us, but it seems as if we are under a dome. Sudhira's house, where we gather and where many of us live all the time, is called Govardhan. Some of our houses have names. Our house is called Jaladuta, Vishnu's house is called Varshana, and Sudhira's house is called Govardhan. In the evening, we had a 3-hour darshan with Radhanath Swami. He talked about Govardhan Lila. He talked about how the residents of Braja admired Krishna's lotus face while Krishna was holding the heel on the little finger of his left hand. So it's not that they were, you know, it's not that they were thinking, oh, Krishna is saving us, but they were under the heel, there was Torasha, but they were looking at Krishna and they were admiring his face. They were admiring how Krishna is holding one finger. They were just loving Krishna. That's all they were thinking about. They weren't thinking about, you know, the Torasha was. Anyways, oddly enough, I had an impression that something similar is happening right now. We almost always either chant japa or kirtan or read Srila Prabhupada's books. Many devotees say that they have a growing taste and desire to chant the holy names and serve Krishna. And it is not out of fear. Now we have almost no fear. Something else is waking up. It is the willingness to serve. Oddly enough, we are happy. We are happy to feel Krishna's love and care. We are happy to be with the devotees, and we don't want to leave. Yesterday we celebrated birthday of Sri Ishvara Mataji and Ritambara Prabhu. We had a grand kirtan and a real feast like in past peace times. Your servant Gaurav. I don't know what else to add to it. I mean, I can only say that yes, we should aspire for this. We are here. There's so many devotees here, but we should aspire to do this, to have this kind of interactions, to have this kind of intensity of serving Krishna, thinking about Krishna, you know, thinking about us as a servant of Krishna. What can I do for you, Krishna? What can I do for your servant? And it's just, it defeats all the kleshas. It defeats the birth, old age, disease, and death. You know, I remember when Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was leaving his body, and he had a cancer, and his body was literally disintegrating. And Radhanath Maharaj was assisting him, and he was there next to his bed, and he was reading him different story about Krishna's pastime. And you know, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he was in incredible physical pain because cancer, not all cancer, but this cancer is very, very painful. And yet he couldn't move very much. He Mark to Maharaj and he wanted to say something. He said, Maharaj, it doesn't get any better than this. Can you imagine having this feeling on your deathbed, that's saying that he hears about Krishna from his god brother, and he says, it doesn't get any better than this. This is how we can transcend the material world. You know, if we try to, and as the devotees, we also have to be very, very careful. Because, you know, yes, we're practicing Krishna consciousness. Like, I tell you something. Krishna Seva Prabhu was saying that I come on this day and that day. Yes, I have my service, yes, I come. But it can become routine, you know. I have to come in the morning, I have to come whatever. It can become routine, you know. I have to go to work, then after work, you know, my body is also, you know, doing its struggle, whatever. And it's easy to get into a mental state thinking, yes, I have to do another thing. And just not think about Krishna very much at that time. And thinking about me, I have to do this, this, and this, and this. And this is a very dangerous position because we're going back with our mental. Although I understand what is the goal of my practice, of my endeavors. The goal is to approach Krishna, to think about Krishna. I'll read also this one statement from Maharaj here. He speaks about sadhana. What is sadhana? Because this is part of our sadhana. Part of our sadhana, our practice, spiritual practice, is that we chant Hare Krishna. We have prescribed a number of rounds to chant Mahamantra. That we avoid things which are unfavorable. We have to rise early in the morning. We don't, you know, engage in intoxication and all these kind of things. And but here Maharaj, he defines sadhana in a very simple way. Oh, I hope I didn't. No, okay. Yes, there it is.
No.
So, Maharaj first quotes the verse. The verse is smart. He said this is an answer to a question. The question is, I had to leave Ukraine and my entire life has changed. Currently, I don't have stability and an opportunity to perform my sadhana as I did before. Often I can't even offer Bhoga properly, but I keep doing it in the simplest way. Fortunately, I have an opportunity to chant my rounds, and I continue doing this. Is it fine that my sadhana is simplified at the moment due to my circumstances? And Maharaj answers to this in that way. A devotee always has to be an expert judge of time, place, and circumstance. We have to remember the objective of our sadhana. And then he quotes the verse, Smarta vyam satata Vishnu, vismarta vyona jatachi, sarve vidi nishedasur, etaya eva kimkara. Lord Vishnu, Krishna is the original Lord Vishnu, should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in Shastras should be the servants of these two principles. And Maharaj says after this, sadhana is not something that is daily ritual within a specific period of time. Sadhana is an opportunity to increase our thoughts of Krishna. There should be no obstacles for doing so. If we are sometimes forced to adjust to the circumstances, that we can simplify the sadhana, but we should not simplify the goal. So the goal of our endeavor is always to increase our thoughts and remembrance of Krishna. So whatever we do, we should have this in mind. This we should not simplify. So we may simplify certain activities that we do, but we should not compromise that understanding that we do it for purpose of Krishna, thinking about Krishna. So I thought these are some very, very valuable instructions, and I thought that, you know, if we, and again, Association of Devotees helps us to remember these things and helps us to refine, retune our attitude in our life, you know, kind of refocus our life more on Krishna, so we don't fall prey to those or fall victims to those material pressures, you know, that yes, I should protect my body, I should protect, I have to invest so much time to make sure I'm healthy, I have to invest so much time to ensure that my job is okay, I have my income, to ensure that my relationships are good, I have to meet this person, that person, whatever. But if these things that we do, they don't increase our thinking about Krishna, then we should reject these things. We should not invest so much time, but we should invest our time in whatever activities bring. I tell you, when I come in the morning, and even though, when I get up and, I do my morning routine, it feels like a chore. But when I come in the morning, and there's even one or two devotees at the temple, I immediately feel very inspired, I tell you this. I see one devotee, there's devotees that come, and then I just see when I come in the morning, I come here through the door, one devotee is sleeping on the floor here, and he just gets up, and I go down to the kitchen, and another devotee is taking shower, and just as soon as they finished, he comes here and chants japa, and they both then come to chant japa, then other Matajis are coming, and I do my routine, but just seeing that, just makes me think, oh my, these devotees, they make this kind of sacrifice, they come to see Krishna, to offer service to Krishna. You can't become indifferent. You suddenly think about Krishna, you look at the deities, and then you open the curtain and the deities to give darshan, and devotees are so happy to. You just can't, you can't become ritualistic about it. It's just moving. So, Prabhus, we should all make that effort to come to the temple. Whoever is there, there's devotees make sacrifice, they come, they offer, it's their own sacrifice, it's their own offering to Krishna, part of sadhana. But we can do the same thing, nobody has to come every day to the temple and, turn their life. But, once a week or whatever, if you come, you chant your japa here, you make offering to Krishna from this, it is so wonderful, it's so inspiring. And then devotees get closer together, they get really appreciate each other, and that's how this resilience and this transcending material world is happening in simple ways like this. So I'll stop here because we should probably.
Radha Krishna, Gopinath, Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai.